I want to talk to you in a little bit about the army building 30,000 homes for migrants and new camps to house them in. But what about this first? Don't you think this was an absolutely shocking announcement that the government's way of dealing with public disquiet, public unrest about this daily invasion of migrants coming across the channel in dinghies is to keep us in the dark and stop telling us how many of them are coming? That's outrageous, isn't it?
I think it is outrageous, Kevin. Yeah. I mean, I get it that it's a hassle for them, an administrative burden, if you like, but they've got to count these people anyway. They've got to register them anyway. They have the numbers. In my view, the only reason publishing them, or they're going to stop publishing them, is because it's an embarrassment for them. The figures are, I predict that they're going to get a lot higher this coming year, because actually there is nothing being done to reduce the flow to the North French coast. And I think they just simply want to head off bad headlines. If we don't know that 1,200 or 800 people have arrived the previous day, we're not going to be able to hold them to account on that. And so this is government avoiding being held to account for its failure to secure and manage our borders properly. It's totally unacceptable in my view. Now, I have to say, though, Kevin, that there's a slight twist to this as well, and that is that there is talk of the Ministry of Defence is going to have a stronger role in this, which we maybe can talk about that, but I think that's a bad idea as well. But the Ministry of Defence aren't in the habit of sharing these sort of figures or figures about what they're doing or operational details, of course. So that's their sort of standard operating approach. But ultimately, this is the Home Office and the government trying to evade being held to accountable for their failure to secure the border.
Indeed. And your reference to the MOD, of course, Boris announced this week as part of his Operation Red Meat backside saving operation that the Royal Navy would be brought in to tackle the migrants coming across. But the Royal Navy immediately announced that it had no intention of sending them back to France, which is what we need to be done. The Border Force already have said no. As you said, the numbers this year are predicted to possibly get to about 65,000. We had nearly 30,000 this year. So the problem goes on and on and on. And talking of the MOD, we also learnt this week that the army has been commissioned to build camps to house 30,000 migrants. My question to you there, Henry, is this the action of a government that thinks it's going to be curing the migrant crisis anytime soon? It's not, is it?
It's absolutely not. And in the late autumnal months, there was a build-up of people, migrants in Libya and across North Africa, hoping to get across to Europe and on to many of them onto the UK. So this is a long pipeline. And so I'm going to be a little bit defensive on the government side here and say, actually, I would rather that they had that capacity to house people than not have it and have to put them into the community. Now, I've proposed in the past publicly a number of other solutions to this. I don't think this is the right solution, but at least it is an answer and it keeps them out of the communities whilst these people's claims are being assessed and processed. But if I can go back to the Royal Navy a bit, what the government should be doing is consolidating the resources that we've got patrolling our territorial waters, our national waters, our maritime borders, if you like. That includes fishing. That includes migrants. It includes criminal activity, drug smuggling, weapon smuggling, and so on. It includes all sorts of the search and rescue side of things as well. And now all these assets should be consolidated into one service, a new Her Majesty's Coast Guard. So there is one umbrella organisation dealing with this. At the moment, there's not. Depending on how you count it, we've got 8 or 11 different government agencies with vessels at sea patrolling our borders for various reasons. They've all got their answer to different government departments, different ministers, and they have their own operating procedures and everything else. This is a mess. It truly is. We need to consolidate it in one organisation, and actually it needs to be a law enforcement organisation, enforcing fishing, migration, drugs trafficking and so on. It's not rocket science. It really, truly
I don't think it is
but
either.
In this country,
I don't think it is either.
We've got a lack of leadership here. We've got
I agree, and I think a lack of commitment. I think that Boris Johnson has never particularly cared about the migrant crisis. He got slightly spurred into action when those poor 27 people drowned in the Channel, and he's been spurred into action again. Now he's trying to curry favour.
Kevin, if Boris Johnson wants to secure his skin and be leading the Conservative Party into the next election, he needs to secure the borders, manage them properly. He needs to be transparent about that. He also needs to deal with Article 16, Northern Ireland, and all of this stuff. He needs to start reduce the cost of living increase on the average household. At the moment, he's doing none of those three things. There's no leadership coming through whatsoever from him or from the cabinet. It's all separate government departments doing their own thing, and it's a mess. It's chaotic.
I couldn't agree more.
And that's my disappointment in government at the moment. The fact that there's no strategic acumen or cohesion.
I agree, and he never does. He's always seemed to be very diffident about this issue. He never seems to have understood how important it is to people. That's why they voted for Brexit, to secure our borders. And he was the sort of poster boy for Brexit. And it's strange that he's never really cared about this. And I hope he does get to grips with it.
The risk in Brexit was not in leaving the European Union. It was because obviously people will know that I'm an ardent sort of Brexiteer. But the risk in Brexit was not leaving the European Union. The risk in Brexit is having a government that is too incompetent to manage the process properly. And that includes taking control of our own borders. And for me, that actually is one of the benefits of Brexit, because we can hold our government truly to account for their failures now. It's not the European Union's fault. It's nobody else's fault.
Point.
It's the British government's fault.
Good
so
point.
now they're truly accountable. And I'd urge people to demand that our government do something about it.
Yeah,
You're right. It's probably the number one issue. One
thing I'd like them to do, we're out of time now, Henry, but we must talk about this very soon. I'd like them to, when these migrants arrive here on our beaches, or ferried in by the Royal Navy or the Border Force ferries or the Royal National Lifeboat Institute, I'd like them to be taken into detention. What people don't seem to realise is we put them in 4-star hotels and everyone goes, oh, it's outrageous, we put them in hotels. What's outrageous is they can just walk out into our country, without being stopped. I can't talk about that now, Henry, because I'm out of time, but we will talk about it next week, mate.